Okay, I think this is the most thought-provoking question that I've ever been asked. And it comes from Danny. And he says, talking about the 1990s, I think he's talking about the 1990s. Did the decade shape you, or did you help shape the decade? Before I answer this, I should point out that I don't tend to prepare for these questions. I just look through the emails and sometimes Facebook comments that come in. I just read them and I just start speaking. I think you can get a more interesting answer that way than preparing the answers to the questions. But did the decade shape you, or did you shape the decade? I think, first of all, with regards to Dubstar, I really do feel like we didn't fly under the radar as such because we were in the media, but I don't think that we were really part of the way the culture was going at that point. I think that the music in the mid to late 90s was moving away from that kind of vocal-led electronic stuff. And it came back in the noughties. You know, if we'd been born 10 years later, we could have probably had a great career in the noughties, but hey. So no, I don't think Dubstar really shaped the 90s very much. I don't know. But we were certainly a participant in it. So we had so many of the tropes and signs and, I suppose, markers that would define Dubstar as a 90s act. So loads and loads of remixes, just dozens and dozens, crazy. CD singles that had like 2 different singles coming out with different tracks on it. That was very 90s. Videos, of course, some of which were good, most of which weren't, in my opinion. And very expensive albums recorded in very expensive studios. You know, all very 90s, I suppose. And what was the first part of the question? Did the decade shape you? I don't think so. Me personally, I kind of feel that if there was a decade that had shaped me, I think it was the 80s. And I was a bit embarrassed to admit that at the time in the 90s. A lot of people said I was sort of like the 80s person in Dubstar, but I don't think that's true. I think Chris was just as much 80s as me, but I was teased about it. I suppose largely because I was the oldest one in the band. That decade's had more of an effect on me than the 90s. I also think that the noughties had a big effect on me as well. I feel like, given how my career changed and the trajectory that it took in the noughties, that's really affected how I work today. I'll give you a very quick example. If we look at just what's happening here, I'm recording this on a laptop computer. I'm able to do this using Wi-Fi. I'm answering questions that have been sent in by email. Now, this is not a very big deal. This is how we communicate these days. But I've always been hugely, sorry, a big bang just happened out there. I've always been hugely excited and interested in computing and computers. That's why the original billing for me on the Dubstar records is Steve Hillier programming, although actually I really played keyboards. I thought being called a programmer would be more interesting. But it was the noughties where the internet and things like iPhones and all that became the dominant culture. And I think that's had a really big effect on me as well. So what was it about the 90s that I carry around with me personally today? I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know. I think maybe that's a question that somebody else should answer on my behalf. As in, when you talk to Steve, does he sound to you like somebody from the 90s? I'll have to get back to you on that one.